Today, I will be discussing how to identify a research problem. One of the biggest challenges faced by graduate students and early career researchers is knowing where to begin. Many people have a broad topic of interest, but they struggle to transform that topic into a clear, focused, and researchable problem. Understanding how to identify a research problem is important because it provides the foundation for the entire research project. Start with the literature. The first principle to remember is that research problems do not appear in isolation. They emerge from the literature. Therefore, the first step in identifying a research problem is conducting a thorough review of existing studies. Researchers need to understand what has already been studied before they can identify what remains unknown. Reading should not be passive. Instead, researchers should actively search for gaps, tensions, contradictions, and unanswered questions. There are three useful approaches to reading. First, read widely to gain a broad understanding of the field. Second, read critically by examining limitations and weaknesses discussed by authors. Third, read strategically by focusing on findings, discussions, and future research. Recommendations. These sections often reveal opportunities for new research, what to look for in the literature. As researchers review the literature, they should look for specific signals that indicate a research gap. One signal is unresolved debates, where scholars disagree and no clear consensus exists. Another signal is contradictory findings, where different studies produce different results. Researchers should also pay attention to poor outcomes in practice, which may indicate a gap between theory and real-world application. Outdated evidence is another signal because older findings may no longer reflect current realities. Finally, missing populations or contexts can reveal important opportunities for research, especially when certain groups or settings have been neglected. Ask the right questions. After identifying potential gaps, researchers should begin asking questions. Three questions are particularly useful. First, what is going wrong? Second, what is not yet understood? Third, why does this matter? These questions help transform observations into a clear research problem. The goal is not only to identify what is missing, but also to explain why. Addressing the gap is important. Write the problem in three parts. A strong research problem statement usually consists of three parts. The first part explains what is already known based on previous studies. The second part identifies what is missing or unresolved. The third part explains why the missing knowledge is important. Together, these three components create a logical argument that justifies the need for further research. The problem statement formula. A practical formula that researchers can use is, although prior studies have examined X, little is known about Y and Z context. This creates a problem because this formula helps researchers clearly identify existing knowledge, the research gap, and the context in which the gap exists, the formula in action. For example, many studies have examined employee well-being in Western corporations. However, little is known about employee well-being among university staff in developing countries working under remote work policies. This gap matters because it limits evidence-based policy development within higher education institutions. By combining these elements, researchers create a clear and focused problem statement. Common mistakes to avoid. Researchers often confuse a topic with a problem. Others are too vague, fail to provide evidence, or confuse social problems with research problems. A good research problem must be specific, evidence-based, and clearly supported by literature. Topic versus problem. A topic simply identifies an area of interest, such as online learning or mental health. A research problem identifies what is missing or unclear within that topic. Research should focus on the knowledge gap rather than the topic itself. Social problem versus research problem. A social problem is a real-world issue such as poverty, burnout, or inequality. A research problem focuses on what researchers do not yet understand about that issue. Research aims to Fill knowledge gaps that can help address social problems more effectively. Self-check. Before finalizing your problem statement, ask yourself, is there a clear gap? Is it supported by evidence? Is the context specific? Does it matter? Is it a research problem rather than just a topic? If the answer is yes to all 5 questions, you are on the right track. Key takeaways. To conclude, always read before you write. Use literature to identify gaps. Structure your problem statement around what is known, what is missing, and why it matters. Be specific, evidence-based, and focused on a research problem rather than a broad topic. Today, I will be discussing